When I was growing up, I definitely felt very selfish for I always dreamed a lot. Like, oh, I want to be this. I want this to be a part of my life. And I feel like I was always told, well, there's a practical side to life. Right. And so like there's this identity that comes for Indian Americans. I can only speak about Indian Americans, I would say, about like everything has to be a struggle. Everything is about suffering. And so I always understood that side of Christianity. And now as an adult, I've just heard a lot from a lot of friends of mine who are young adult Christian American Indians who have told me like, no, God told us about living life in abundance. So what does abundant life mean? You shouldn't be chasing happiness always, but we shouldn't be suffering all the time.
Yeah. It's like a badge of honor, like the moniker of suffering. It's like, I did it. Like,
exactly.
I'm a great Christian because everything is going poorly.
Which is like, no, that's not, I don't know that that's true always, right? Suffering good and bad all at the same time.
Yeah.
The burden I know that I've had of trying to give meaning to my parents' suffering was, as I was growing up, I think that was something that was a very huge, heavy burden on me, which I didn't even realize was what it was until I became older and kind of reflected on that. And it's not something that my parents really necessarily try to put on me intentionally. In some ways, yes, by the things that they, wanted us to be successful at, being successful at school, and letting us know that like, oh, they're okay with suffering because it's for us. Have you felt that? Have any of you guys felt that as well? That your life needed to give meaning to your parents' suffering?
I have like a unique story in some ways that like my parents and my grandparents immigrated around the same time, and they all were working in the United States, etc. So I know that like I am constantly aware of like, well, I don't want what they did to come to the United States for me to go in vain, right? I don't want the opportunities they tried to give me be in vain, right? And so like, I think there's a lot of cultural pressure around that.
Like I think about this table. This table is kind of a really unique expression of how I think things could like potentially change because like three of us here are pastors, you're a filmmaker, you lead worship, like you're in the creative arts world. And I think at some point we had to kind of break from this like expectations. Like I left law school to go pursue ministry. And I felt like I had to get my mom's blessing on that and her stamp of approval, which she very graciously like gave to me. But imagine like coming to a new country. You don't speak the language. You don't have any connections. You don't have any networks. You have to like navigate life, raise a family, get a job. My mom went to college in the States and got her bachelor's while she had me while she was working full time.
I resonate with that a lot, with that sort of like family evolution of suffering. And I think a lot of it, at least for my family too, is socioeconomic. I think as our parents and as each generation becomes more educated, has more opportunities for success, accumulates privilege and wealth, I think our goals become different. I think when I think back to my grandparents and even my great-grandparents, we're not that far removed from living in very small villages in southern China, and then living in also like small Chinese enclaves in Vietnam too. And when I think about like what those priorities would have been for them for survival and how much has changed in less than 50 years, it makes a lot of sense that even like our understanding of suffering has accelerated because of what's happened in our family and how the world has gotten smaller for them in a lot of ways.
In the American culture, I think when someone thinks about their legacy, it's very individualistic and what I have contributed and what I have done, which is beautiful.
Totally.
And I think what's also beautiful, but is hard, is I think in the Asian culture, your legacy, your children are your legacy.
Yes.
So it doesn't matter like what I have or don't have, but my children, if they are set up well, then they are my legacy, and I can like walk with my shoulders, held high, head held high, my shoulders back, and so I think that's something that definitely resonates in the kind of Korean culture as well.
Which is so much pressure.
It is.
Like if you're on the recipient end of that.
Yeah. And I remember like talking about that once in a while with my parents. It's like, no, we never meant for you to feel that way.
Sure. Yep.
But like the way words affect you as an adult, right? Like, I think a lot of people know Asian culture in general is very honor shame based. So there's so much shame surrounding not doing well. And what that definition was defined by what our community decided.
Yes.
Right? And so it was like, you can't fail because everyone will be disappointed, and then therefore you should feel ashamed of yourself.
And then ashamed before God. If God's blessing you, that's directly related to
Your success.
yes.
Yep.
Yeah. I think like growing up, like image was like huge. Like you have to like look good. Like I don't know. Like I played like 7 instruments growing up.
Wow.
Like I had to do well in school. I had to do sports. I had to do art. That was more like what I wanted to do. But like there's a lot of pressure to like look good, be perfect, and like my dad's like teaching me how to like answer the phone. Like
Oh, yeah.
Is that a like universal experience?
it's like
I haven't had that.
I had a script. Like it's like Shimabuku residence, Johnathan speaking.
That's right.
I know what
I had to do that. Yeah. I had to do that, and like one of my brother's friends is like, you know, like called, and then like, or their parents called, and then we answered it like that.
Yep.
And then at school, they're like, you're like, why did you answer the phone like that? Now my parents want me to answer the phone like that.
You can't say what to your parents.
That's right.
Yeah, I can't say what. And like even like growing up, like I addressed my aunts and uncles like, you know, Uncle Ricky or Auntie Diane or whatever. And then like me, I'm an uncle now. And like when my nieces and nephews, they like just call me Johnathan. It's like something in me is like, it's like that sounds wrong.
How dare you? So currently we're also going through a series called Unsung Heroes. And for a lot of us who grew up with our parents like close in proximity to us and knowing that intergenerational relationships are strong in the AAPI community, I want to know just one thing that you're grateful for your parents today. Whether you recognize it as a kid or not, what's something that you can kind of come to the table with and thank them for?
When I think about my parents, they're always welcoming. They're always going to open up their home for me and my brothers, and they're going to be hospitable, and they're just going to be loving with open arms.
I'm thankful for my parents' availability, even as we've hashed out so many complex issues throughout the years. Even if they're probably more available than I need sometimes, I appreciate that I can go home and have even the same argument or discussion over and over again. They're not disengaging from me. They're ready to have that discussion, even if it's hard.
I think my parents were always putting us first, their children first, no matter how tired they were, lonely or angry.
My parents, like I'm 24 years old and my parents are still taking care of me. Like my mom always brings more food for me to put in my freezer. And I think my parents just always cared about taking care of me. And they will never stop. That is like at the core of who they are. They care about me being taken care of. And like, even if I screwed up everything, my parents will still be the first ones to call. So,
I'm so proud of my mom. I feel like as I think about her immigrant journey and everything that she endured to like provide the life, once again, it's complex. It came at a cost. Like I look at her resilience and her endurance as a person, even now at, almost, I'm not going to put her age out. She'll get very mad. But, she still shows up with that same posture of like, anything is possible. And I kind of love that. I love it. That fighter spirit's within her.
it's beautiful.